Sonny.
Bartosz.
Ian.
Marc. There we go. How we doing, everybody?
Good. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Yeah.
This is I feel like I've gone on the timeline and I've seen Ian a trillion times. Photo finish has probably been one of the most talked about projects in the last year. And so it's good to finally meet you in person. And I've been looking forward to this podcast for a long time.
Yeah. I don't get out much.
Wow.
You know, just buried
Just
down.
busy building. Busy
so,
building.
Yeah, to show up in a place like this, meet Bartosz, meet you in person, it's awesome. I mean, I literally haven't done any events. I haven't done any of this stuff, so it's cool to finally get out. I mean, I'm a little obsessive, and so I tend to stay focused on the product. And now it's been time to actually maybe appreciate what we built a little bit.
There we go. So give us more of your background, because I know everybody's talked about. I've seen a few. I need a rumor cleared up, actually.
Yeah.
So I know that you worked previously with NFL Madden, so I need you to first tell me a little bit more about that. But then also, I heard a rumor that you invented the hit stick. Is that accurate?
Yeah, both are true. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
The hit stick is crazy. That's insane.
Yeah, there's a great story of that too. It's like, so yeah, I did work on Madden. My first job out of college, I was 19 years old. I got a job as a tester during the summer, and I dropped out of school right then, and I never left. And it was just the dream to work in the game industry, and obviously to end up on Madden, which was my game of choice. I mean, it's like what I played with all my boys. So I worked my way up, the ladder from a tester all the way to being in charge. But one of the hit stick story there was really like we were looking for something new to do. Madden 04 had come out where Mike Vick was on the cover. Everyone was complaining that he was too powerful, offense was too powerful, so we kind of like brainstorming a little bit on what were we going to do for the next year. And let's say, what if we put, a defensive player on the cover? How do we make defense more fun? Because it was never fun. It was always offense. And so we came up with this idea of like maybe you flick the stick and maybe it hits a guy. And so I had to go motion capture all of those animations, right? And so I'm like, I was the producer. And trying to figure out which stuntman is going to be okay with getting like just drilled in the face, pancaked over and over and over again. I couldn't find anyone. Couldn't find any stuntman to do it. So I called my buddy that I grew up with, that played Madden with. He was an actor, and he had played like D3 college ball. And I said, hey, do you want to come do a mocap shoot? He's like, yeah, what do I have to do? I'm like, don't worry about it. It'll be great. It'll be fun, And I was like, you might want to pack on some weight before you get there. And so this is my buddy Ted. I mean, he's like a L.A. actor, He's been in The Help and True Blood and all this stuff. And so this was his first actual paid gig. So he shows up, put the pads on, the ping pong balls are all over the suit. And he's like, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, just run straight. And all of a sudden, out of the other locker room comes this like 6'4", monster behemoth. And, Ted's eyes open up. And it was really basically about an hour straight of him just like running, almost closing his eyes and just getting laid out from every direction, every angle. I'm pretty sure he got a concussion.
Probably got CT.
You might expect. But it was like, even to him, we were still only like 24, young kids. And it was like one of the most memorable trips, of course, to like be in Vancouver. We've never done anything like that before. And it's wild to think, it's been 10, 15 years or whatever. And it's like you hear announcers say it. If you search YouTube for big hits, they all say hit stick. It's like this. It's part of the lexicon. It's part of culture. And it was like just a couple of kids from Middle Tennessee that threw it together.
It's definitely cultural. Like,
yeah,
that's for sure.
Even
just playing like pickup football or something like that. Every time you hit someone, it's like hit stick.
Oh,
hit stick. Like
truck stick
every
came
time.
the next year, I think, and people still say that. Watch out, truck stick. It's
yeah,
push somebody out of the way. It's just like, again, it's weird, but it's weird how that all happens. But yeah, that was us.
Well, listen, if you're ever working on something with photo finish and you need somebody to get, like run over by a horse or something, Sonny actually told me before we started the podcast, he volunteers to do any of that. He's very excited for it.
I thought you were going to say you would be a jockey.
No.
No.
Not to be thrown off the horse, but I'll ride the horse. Sure.
Okay.
You would ride the horse, Marc.
I'm
you want to be a jockey?
Jockey size.
I'm actually, I think I would thrive in that. Except, aren't they like 120 pounds?
I think 120 is max. Yes.
Yeah, that's a little.
You got
low.
cut.
That's a little.
You're
low.
only like 100 pounds, aren't you, Marc?
Soaking wet.
Come on. That's easy.
Yeah, dude. After a cut, you would make it.
Fair.
Trash bag, run a mile. the whole thing, you'd be there.
Fair. So, okay, so tell us more about then. How did Photo Finish kind of come to be? When did you realize that the gaming space kind of needed a game like Photo Finish? And how did that development process even start to begin?
Yeah, so I mean, the background of like, I worked at EA for about a decade, and I was kind of bored with working on Madden that long. Of course, I loved it. I loved doing it, but it just felt like the same grind. And so I actually ended up thinking, well, I need to try and learn a little bit about the industry outside of sports and outside of only console games. So I did a little stint at Zynga, just trying to learn a little bit of how that worked. And then I went over to FanDuel for about a year, trying to learn how real money worked and all this stuff. I mean, that's what interests me, of course, sports, gambling, betting, all these things.
Speaking my language.
Right, and that was always my thing. And so when it came time to, it felt like, around 2014, it was like, I could start my own company. I think I know how to do this. I think I know how to make my own game. What game should I make? And I was like, should I make a football game? Should I try to compete with Madden? No, that's too hard. But I looked around and there was really nothing in the horse racing space. And, I wasn't a fan of horse racing, but I just thought, wow, this is a really cool sport. Again, it ticks all my boxes. It's got the wagering. It's got the excitement. You can be authentic, all the things that I like about sports. It's competitive. And so I basically created a prototype back in 2014 for a mobile game that ended up being called Photo Finish, and that game I think it's actually still live on the mobile marketplace.
Oh, wow.
And we built the studio off of that. And then in 2021, we had built 2 horse racing games. At this point, we had a partnership with NBC. We just had really built like a pretty kind of empire, smallish empire around horse racing mobile games. And that's around the time that I saw Top Shot really take off. And I thought, man, this is really like a perfect marriage. Maybe Web3 is now ready. Maybe the blockchain is ready for our style of game. Whereas, I had been interested in ETH and had mined ETH back in the day and stuff, but I just felt like, well, it was still too niche. Didn't think like anyone would care. And it felt like, no, maybe we're at the point. So I said, well, I just kind of pitched to the team, why don't we take our game, get it on the chain, see what happens, prototype it, just go as fast as we can, see if we can build a community. And that's how it's been. I mean, it just exploded kind of overnight. Soul Big Brain and these people tweet about us, and all of a sudden we've got a community of 25,000 people. And so we've been building heads down those since. I mean, it's felt like I haven't had a day off since 2021, but it's been super exciting to sort of bring this, again, that sort of acumen of sports games and the care to the authenticity, the care to the sport, partnering with the Kentucky Derby, sort of just like bringing in a much more of a professional, but also still kind of degen play on the sport. And that's where we're focused. And obviously it's weird. I wouldn't have told you 10 years ago. I thought like, oh, I'm going to work on horse racing for 10 years. I worked on Madden for 10. I'm not going to work on horse racing for another 10, but here I am. I actually love it.
Horsing around.
Yeah, still horsing around, dude.
How did you pick Solana?
How did I pick Solana? That's interesting. So when word was getting out that we were going to try a Web3 game, we had these successful mobile games, and it sort of made sense. Let's try the blockchain. We were courted by every chain. It was sort of like at that time everyone wanted a Zed killer. So every chain is reaching out to us. They think, oh, these guys seem like they'd be worth a shot. And so I met with everyone, and it was really one meeting I had with Colleen at Solana, and then right after that, a meeting with Tolly and Colleen, where I just felt like these guys get it. They understand me. They understand the needs of us. And it wasn't like it was a hardcore commitment or any kind of grant or anything. It was just more or less like, well, let's just try it with these guys for a while. And, we chewed glass. It was a rough year after that to kind of deal with. But at the same time, I still always believed in Tolly and the tech, regardless of whatever the ecosystem craziness can go around it and FTX and all this stuff. And it's always felt like this is the natural fit for a game. All the other chains, maybe they have other use cases. I don't really get into them that much. It's really like, no, Solana works for what we need, and it's sort of like speed, cheap. That's what I want. That's what I need.
What didn't work?
What didn't work about Solana? I mean, I think, the ecosystem has been a hard one. Like when we first started, we were asking all of our community members, what do you think you would put up on stakes for a race? What's the maximum you would risk? Yeah. And I mean, at the beginning, they were like $15K per race. Wow. That was like, no problem. And then, a year later, it's like $5 per race. I was like, oh, so that changed our whole economics quite a bit. Everyone was down bad for a while.
So now it's 150?
Now it's back, sort of back in the
we're
middle,
moving,
about
we're moving
200.
Back up, not the poor chain anymore.
Yeah. So I think that was definitely visible. I mean, you could see, like, obviously the community, they've stuck with us, and they've felt like, I mean, they've been amazing. Like everything has been, this core group has started. We've built since then, but they stuck with us. And I think what was great is that we did have something for them to do, and to sort of like, even though they could be sad about the rest of their portfolio, they could always still be like, all right, well, hey, Photo Finish is going to make it, and still like see us building. And we do. We build with them every day. So I think they have always been able to cling to that. And now it's great to see them get rewarded.
You mentioned Zed, and there's also been a couple other like racing games that have come out on Solana too, right? Like dog racing and like all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I guess from your perspective, why do you think Photo Finish has really been able to kind of capture that market, but also been just more successful and more sustainable than a couple of these other games that have come out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that saw Zed's success and they cloned Zed. Right? I mean, you see that a lot in any type of success. And none of them had the foresight to think like, well, what's going to happen when this thing scales? And Zed had the same problem almost every crypto game has had, which is kind of shocking. But they have inflationary supply, which is sort of like a no duh problem that when you continue to mint assets infinitely, guess what happens?
Did you try to talk with U.S. government?
Yeah. Well, they at least have the military behind it. These games don't have the military to cover it. So I mean, that was really for us the thesis from the beginning, is that the horses age and they die. So that was the number one like core that we thought, well, that will change everything, because now it's not about get the best horse or get the best asset, even in Top Shot, and then watch as everything gets diluted later. It's always pulling down away from you. It's always deflationary. So that was number one. And then number two, I think just our approach of, I mean, as I said, 10 years of history in horse racing, 20 years of sports game development. I mean, the majority, I don't know of any other horse racing game specifically, maybe other even racing game, that it has a team that's ever built a game before. And so it's not only just that they're rookie game, like they're early in their career. No, it's like they've literally never made a single game. And that's a pretty wild stretch now. Like, it's one thing to like have your game degree and you're hustling right out of college and you're a programmer, but a lot of these teams were marketing teams, and they were really good at making sizzle trailers and, really good at sort of like getting people in for a mint, to then eventually just do nothing, do a poor product. So I think it's weird. We came of it like the other way, everyone else is sort of like hype first, build the product second, raise all the money, and then hopefully you can catch that product up to your hype. And I think we were definitely no hype, just sort of like literally build the product into the hype. So I think that's the big difference, is like we've now got 10 years of a horse racing game under our belt. Everyone else is like, how do we copy something real quick? Because we got to get a mint in a month and we got to make $1 million, and so it's just very different. So I've hoped that this has been the case, and you can kind of see it. I feel the vibe being here today that like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I'm just like, man, is this ecosystem going to survive? Because there's all these like rugs constantly, scammers, they show up out of nowhere. And then now to be here and be like, no, these are the people that survived it. And now they all have real companies. They got real businesses. It's like, it's really empowering,
It takes time to build. I think we talked with Marc at one point about this. It's like the Twitter gives you this illusion that you can make it quick. It's never quick.
No.
And it's always a down cycle and a grind.
Yeah.
It's funny that you said like a lot of those teams don't have the experience in building games. I feel like this is kind of true for a lot of like crypto projects in general, not just games. Like almost, every single crypto exchange was built by people that have no experience in finance.
It's wild. It's such a wild space. Like I always try to make the joke with our team of like, how many projects minted out and their roadmap was just sort of like, we're going to figure it out.
We're going to create Discord.
Yeah, we're going to
staking.
Yeah, and it was just like, imagine walking into a VC office and be like, okay, what's your pitch? Well, I would like $3.5 million for 0% of the company. Oh, okay. Well, what are you building? Not sure. Trust me, it's gonna moon, and it's just like, but unfortunately the retail investors like, well, as long as the other guy's gonna buy for me, let's ape in and do it, and maybe this will be hyped enough to get out. And it was a rough go there, very frustrating and sad at some level.
Yeah. Like one thing, so you did NFTs as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it started with NFTs before the game was live.
Yeah.
I think from my perspective, one thing that's pretty hard about the NFTs, which like how do you avoid too much of the speculators? Like the speculators are the nature of, your game and the NFTs and crypto. But if there's too many of them,
Yeah.
people don't have the attachment to what you are building.
Yep.
So how do you manage the ratio of
You're right.
actual users to speculators?
Yeah, I mean, same with tokens, right? It's the same, like the Crown token, you got people flying in and out of there with huge sales, moving stuff up and down.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, wait, the community's going, what's wrong with the game? What happened? And it's just like, oh, nothing happened.
Yep.
But yeah, in terms of you good? Oh, okay, sorry. All right. So yeah, in terms of the speculators on NFTs, I mean, I think we didn't plan this, but the fact that the game took so long to build, like the fact that it took at least 8 months for even to have a beta ready, that shook out all of the speculators.
Are they back?
Not really. It's sort of like when you get to the point where a game like ours requires a lot of commitment, like it just doesn't fit with the speculators, which is good and bad. I mean, some level, but like.
Yeah.
If your job is sort of going around and flipping NFTs, you're in 1,000 Discords, it's a fire hose of information at you. You don't have the time to go manage a stable of horses, and that's good. That's fine. So I think that's most of those people have shaken out, and of the 25,000, we're left with 5,000 that are like, oh, we actually really like playing this, and I don't really need to go flip other. This is now their speculative area is just trading horses in the game or whatever. So yeah,
that's awesome. I have a friend that has been singing your praises for a very long time.
From the rafters.
It's gotta be Aaron.
From the rafters.
It's gotta be Aaron.
Aaron, obviously from D Stables, and him just talking about D Stables and like the way that he gets passionate around his like brand underneath your game. I guess for you, how important has it been to have these kind of stable communities and kind of almost like these sub-communities under the game? Like, how powerful has it been for Photo Finish?
Yeah, I think it's critical. I think that was a little bit of our design thesis at the beginning, was that like this is something that Web3 can offer that traditional Web2 games really kind of can't do that well. And, a lot of people when we were first making the game, a lot of like game heavy investors would just be like, why are you even using the blockchain? Why are you even doing a token? Why, and very good questions. And I think that was a big reason for us, was that we wanted to share the ownership of the tracks with the player base to start, pushing more and more, I hate to say decentralization, but to give them more power, because we felt like they would be better marketing people than we would. Like over time, all of these communities that own a track could actually hype up their track better than we could over time. And I think D-Stables is a perfect example of that, of like early conviction from Aaron, rallies a community around it, and now like has his own track in the game, and he never shuts up about it.
Literally never shuts up.
And everyone that
about
I meet is just like you. They go, man, Aaron talked my ear off at this conference the other day. This is like and that's perfect. That's what I want. I'm not at that conference. Aaron is. I'm not here. Like his whole team is. He's got 2,000 people out there singing the praises of this. That again, I'm not paying those guys for marketing. They're now like entrepreneurs inside the game. That again, you really can't do in Web 2. That's the part that was so exciting. And so yeah, it's super critical. And I think when I think about the 5-year or 10-year vision of Photo Finish, it's even more and more and more of that, where we're just keeping it on the rails. And then the community is building it into this behemoth of a track in every city. And then there are, whatever, it becomes like real life. And then we're just sort of sitting back like, all right, well let us know what you need. We'll kind of keep it, make sure that nothing falls apart. As opposed to, and the reason I think we came to that, like we spent many years on what we call in the game industry a content treadmill, where the way you make money in mobile games is you create new quests or objectives or loot boxes, just more and more things for people to buy. Look at Fortnite, right? Every week there's a new set of skins you got to pay for. Rocket League, there's a new season with all new unlocks. And when you work on content treadmills, it's extremely demoralizing over time. You end up like, man, this sucks. Like, this is all I'm doing is just like generating content. And I thought, man, what a different world this could be, where we instead operate a platform. We don't have to do any content. We just like keep the platform on, and we're more like a eBay, and they're out there doing all the work. And so that's been the sort of prototype and it's working out so far. Yeah.
So you mentioned NBC, and you mentioned that you had a relationship with them. If I remember correctly, you had that relationship before the NFT project dropped. So how did, when you talked with them about NFTs, obviously NFT for a lot of people is a cringe word for a lot of businesses.
Right.
They're like, we don't want to be involved in that. We're still skeptical of the space and everything like that. So how did those conversations go with NBC?
Yeah, well, I mean, so NBC, we typically do the visual simulations for their broadcasts, and then that led to the actual relationship with the Kentucky Derby themselves. And so a lot of people know this about me. I never even say the word NFT. And I think a part of that is, the game industry, traditional hardcore gamers are immediately think it's a scam. Like it's the NFT PR is dead. They killed it. Whoever did it, they blew it.
We got to work on that. Yeah.
It's got to be digital collectible.
Yeah.
If you're doing anything, you can't say NFT anymore because you say that in the game industry. Go look at Kotaku. Go look at traditional gaming sites. It's like pure toxicity to say that word. So I think the main thing I try to lean into is approaching it with them as if they're my mom. Like it's like a baseball card. You can have, there's a certain amount of them, but the cool part about it is that there's a verifiable scarcity, verifiable rarity. You just do like a few of those things and they immediately go, oh, okay, I can see that. And people like the Kentucky Derby, I think when we had first started doing a relationship with them, they had done a mint with like one of those third-party providers that would just go around and basically rug, big brands. And they said they did a picture of a glass, was the NFT. And I go look it up, and they sold for like $5. They sold like 40 of them. And I'm like, what? And this was in the bull on everything. Everything was selling out, and I'm like, you guys couldn't sell more than like $100 worth of NFTs.
Those weren't even good scammers.
yeah, they're just bad. So I think. Again, approaching it with them saying like, look, we're not going to rush you into any blockchain stuff, but if you're interested, we could consult and help you like actually do digital collectibles that have meaning, that have, a real reason to exist in our ecosystem. And that's where we sort of settled in of like, they own a track in the game. That's their digital footprint, as opposed to like, let's go print a bunch of random things that we made up, pictures of roses, pictures of bourbon. Like that's not what is going to really work. So yeah, I think that's typically how you have to do it. In my perspective, is like treat it like you're talking to, boomers, and make sure that you don't get in the weeds of like, well, provenance is really the big reason you don't get into any of that.
So where do you envision Photo Finish going from here? Because when you talk about a lot of the other games, you have to basically constantly, like NFL Madden, right? You had to create the hit stick because people, are running around with Michael Vick with his 98 speed and impossible to tackle, right? So you guys had to create the hit stick. So with this, it's now a game that's basically running itself at this point, right? You have all these different people that are kind of marketing the product for you. You have all these races. People are constantly talking about it. The project is doing so well that basically you just go on Twitter and there's somebody screenshotting it, talking about, something along those lines. Yeah. It's either Roaring Hammy or it's Aaron DeGods. It's one of the two every
always
time.
Those two, yeah.
And so with that, like, where do you envision the game going that continues to, I guess, entice people to come into the game? And then do you ever think that you'll go, okay, hey, we've basically mastered at this point horse racing, and now we actually want to go and do, I don't know, a digital pickleball game, or I don't know, something, another, something else that's, I guess, not already been done by EA or something along those lines? Yeah.
I mean, I think, it's easy in our sort of bubble to think that Photo Finish has reached, massive success, but it hasn't. It's got, a few thousand players, and the revenue and the volume is awesome, but I need 100,000 daily users before I'll be satisfied. And even then, I'll probably be still pissed off about something.
Then you'll want 1 million.
And then I'll need 1 million. But, 100,000 daily players would really be a just rocket ship, and holding the metrics that we have now, the ecosystem would support it. And then, yeah, it does get on. It's not autopilot, but there's just so much that community could do. They're breeding, they're racing, they're building, they've got their tracks, they're fighting over everything each other, and we can step out and just be like, all right, again, just kind of keep it formed. At that point, or maybe a little earlier, we do have some other games, sort of prototypes in progress. I do think that Third Time has a pretty unique opportunity. We have figured out and chewed the glass of crypto, and we've figured out a lot of the tokenomics things that I'm not going to say they last forever, but we've found a lot of interesting things that people haven't done before. that are so critical to that deflationary photo finish economy. And so I think we've solved a lot of problems that we can redo in other games. We can do them even better in other games. And so I do look at third time as sort of, we could be and should be and hopefully will be this sort of leader in sports games with real money involved. And that can be literally every sport. I'm not going to compete with EA ever. There's no reason to, nor do I, that's not the style of game we want. Like, I'm building over in this world where people have always wanted to play for real money and real stakes, and no matter what the game. And so, we've teased golf, casino games, horse racing. Imagining those level of sports, I think we would have no competitor if we take what we've learned, all the interest that we have in our communities, all the crypto backing that we got so far. I think that's where we're going to go next.
Fair. Okay, so my last question for you, a full circle moment. What would you do if EA approached you at some point and says, hey, we love what you're doing. We want to buy out Photo Finish. Is it ever up for sale?
Yeah, I mean, everything's got a price.
That's true. That's true.
They just bought, so I was helping build a studio for Glue Mobile. If you know Glue, they had Tap Sports Baseball. They had Kim Kardashian game. EA paid $2.4 billion for Glue. And I think all their games have already been shut down. So this is like 2.5 years ago. They paid $2-something billion and then just said, you know what, we messed up, write down. So I would take that.
Yeah, I'll take that too. Yeah, if they want to buy out this podcast at the same time, the offer's out there.
Yeah, but yeah, like taking like an Acqui-hire, hey, come work here and build for EA, that would be hard. That would be super hard. I wouldn't, because I don't want to get back. EA is a great like organization, but I did that already. So
fair.
I'm not going to bash them too bad.
We do have to wrap up from here. So, Sonny, you got a last question?
Yeah, I got 3 rapid questions, rapid fire. 1, who's your favorite stables in the game? 2, is there going to be like your own Kentucky Derby within the game? And then the 3rd is for Bartosz, when Cube stables?
Yeah. So my first, obviously there's so many great players that have been playing all along. It's hard to like pick anybody out. These early community members with the conviction has been amazing. Some of them breeding hundreds and hundreds of new horses. But one of my favorites is Solana Stables, who is run by this guy named Kamish, who's also, the reason I think it's so special is that one of our previous really hardcore players from the mobile game. So he's been playing our games for like 6 years.
Oh, wow.
He joined Kamish as sort of his stable manager. So they, Kamish was sort of the business side, while as Dinga, as he goes by, was the sort of guy doing the hardcore breeding. And they've been so amazing at figuring out these little niches of breeding, and they're the ones setting all the record sales. So they're the guys that put up a stud that made 80 grand in a week.
Sheesh.
They're the guys that bought another stud for 50 grand and have already made it back. So they've built like this breeding operation that feels like it's top tier, top shelf Rolex style. And everyone in the community is like, ooh, how do we get one of the Solana studs in our bloodline? It's like that level of entrepreneurship. I love that they've done that, and they picked that sort of niche and went for it. The second, the Kentucky Derby, yes. So we actually run a virtual Kentucky Derby every month, once every 4 weeks. It's actually this Saturday night. Will be this season's, and they line up every 4 weeks. We do a live stream. This is one of those things that we've been looking to hopefully talk with people like Marc, people like yourself, and get more and more streaming behind it, because I just typically stream it with like a couple of the community members, and it's always fun. But it's sort of like, how do we get this to the next level? Starting to see bigger streams. We've been talking to a lot of different people as we go along on that. And then, win Cube. That's we're going to do that.
Yeah, last question.
Yeah, I actually asked Ian to help me set it up. So hopefully, like right after that, we'll go do it.
Yeah,
there we go. There we go. Well, hey, I know we got to wrap up. They were giving me the sign. So, guys, this was a great episode. Excited to see where Photo Finish goes from here.
Yeah.
And, hey, D-Stables on top.
D-Stables on
Until
top.
cube.exchange Stables comes on top. So, Aaron, you got competition. You got a competition.
Yeah.
But thank you, Ian. Appreciate you guys.
Cheers.